I had been heavy my entire life, from the time I was in high school, and the only life I knew. I didn't actually know what I was missing out on.
And life was painful. It hurt physically to do things, to go places, and it limited what we could do and what we would enjoy doing. Going on a hike around a lake, after 15 minutes, hips hurt, knees hurt, ankles hurt, and so you wouldn't do it.
We met, we got married, we adopted kids, and we just kind of went through the motions of life. I don't think we were living, but we didn't know that at the time. We didn't realize what we were missing. So I think that's what life was like beforehand. There was a lot of TV watching, just going through the grind, going to work, coming home, eating, watching TV. I don't think my kids got the parents that they deserved. We weren't as participatory in their physical lives. We were bystanders. We watched them live. They got a lot of joy about that, but we'd go on a cruise and they'd go rock climbing and we'd watch them rock climbing, cheer them on, and we watched their lives go by, and we were active in our communication with them, but not in, just being parents and being together.
COVID had struck, and it was hard seeing your doctor, and I decided to change primary care physicians, and I gave him my elevator speech. I know I'm overweight. I've been overweight my whole life. I'm not wanting to do anything drastic like bariatric surgery because I know it's about self-discipline. I know it's about calorie deficit. I know it's about moving my body. And he very patiently listened to me and said, well, Scott, I'm not going to argue with you, but a lot of what you've shared with me is old science. It's not current, and it's not really accurate anymore. So if you want to learn more, I'm happy talking to you about it. And what he did was he basically rehearsed my entire life and struggles with weight in a way that I'd never seen presented before. Something clicked. And he introduced me to the Weight Loss Center and Dr. Catania, and I got the ball rolling. The first video session, what stood out to me was we knew that the surgeon was going to be speaking to us, and it was on Zoom because we were out of COVID, and maybe there were about 20 people there. And all of a sudden he appeared in his scrubs, and he said, I'm sorry for being 5 minutes late. I got out of surgery and just cleaned up, but I did not want to miss this. And I thought, that's amazing. This isn't a sales pitch from a representative from the hospital trying to get patients or clients. This is the surgeon who cares enough about what he does that as soon as he's walked out of surgery, he's doing this info session.
I watched the video in quotes. Scott was in the room with me and he had the video on, and I was sitting on the other side of the room, reading or whatever, and I was listening in, and I was like, oh, this is very interesting. This is not just for Scott. I think this might be for me too. Let's sign us both up. Not for the surgery, to go talk to somebody at the weight loss clinic in person.
Pretty much every weight management program in the country with bariatric surgery follows a standard protocol. So we all do a lot of things very similarly. I think what sets us apart and makes us different is the personalized approach that we give to the patients. So the first thing we talk about when we first meet them is, what brings you here? What are your goals? What are the problems that you identify as most bothersome to you? And then once we have an idea of what the patient's problems are and what the patient's hoping for, then we are able to kind of tailor our care to give them exactly what they need.
I was not expecting when I arrived to have people that actually cared about me, actually listened to me, actually wanted to hear my story, be part of my story, and let me make my decisions. There was no forcing into surgery. I was told about all the options. I was given the right to make up my own mind in my own time, and that was amazing. I decided to do medication, which there's nothing wrong with medication. It absolutely worked. I lost about 60 pounds on medication, but Scott had the surgery, and maybe 3 or 4 months after Scott had the surgery, I got a positive diabetes test, and it was the first and only one I've ever had, but it freaked me out, and I said, enough of this. I'm not doing this anymore. I already saw it was working for Scott, and I wanted it to work for myself. So we made it happen.
So before surgery, I lived on the first floor of our home for the most part. I would only go upstairs for bed, where our bedroom was, and come downstairs in the morning. Anytime I had to go upstairs, I would send one of our kids upstairs to pick something up for me. Would you go upstairs and grab this? Or while you're upstairs, bring this down, and so on. Because it was just too painful. Literally going up one flight of stairs in my house. And so I would make this decision to spend all of my time on one floor. Now, I go up and down multiple times a day and never ask my kids to grab anything for me going up and downstairs.
I've always had asthma my entire life. I was on preventative asthma medicine, which prevented me from really doing things without making sure I had a rescue inhaler on me. I haven't taken even my preventative inhaler in a year and a half. I had that one diabetes test that freaked me out. My blood sugars are, in the excellent range all the time now. It's unbelievable.
The things that we do together, we have more energy, we spend more time together. We've also been able to more happily explore the hobbies and interests that we had that were limited because of our weight. For example, Emily regularly swims early in the morning before work. That's part of her physical fitness regimen. And it's also her time to herself and to enjoy that hobby. I spend a lot of time meditating and practicing martial arts, which I couldn't do before because it physically hurt. And now I get to enjoy that again, something I hadn't been able to do since childhood.
We literally just got back from a vacation last week. We went to France and we did so many things that we wouldn't have done before. We rented an Airbnb up on the 4th floor of a old 1400s building. It was stairs, the 4th floor, and it was no big deal. It didn't matter to us. Before, I would have just booked a bus tour and, watched the world go by and said, oh, there's the Eiffel Tower. And now we got to, walk to the Eiffel Tower. And, it's a different view. It's a different view. Gosh, I think I've met a lot of members of the team. From, the people at the front desk, the nurses have been amazing. The first time I met Megan, I thought, oh my gosh, she's my favorite person I've ever met in my entire life. She has so much energy. She reflects that energy back at me. She lets me be nervous. She lets me express myself, and she is so knowledgeable. Dr. Catania is a genius. Knows what he's talking about, but there's no pressure. He allowed me to change paths multiple times. I was surgery, I was medication, I was different medication, I was nutrition, I was surgery. And it was no big deal. No big deal. The whole thing is a big deal, don't get me wrong, but the not knowing what direction you want to go with, as long as you're willing to put effort in, they're with you and they're gung-ho and they'll support you how you decide.
I remember one time coming in to weigh in and to visit, and Meg was with me, and I stood on the scale and I had gained 5 pounds since the last time I had visited and weighed in. And I said, oh, I've gained weight. And she put her hand on my shoulder and said, well, that's why you're here. That's why I was there. And such a simple thing that was so encouraging. No judgment, no sense of guilt or shame. This is why we're here, and we're going to help you along. And to echo what Emily had said, everyone in the office has been amazingly encouraging, wonderfully supportive, kind, friendly, funny. A sense of humor with your doctor is fantastic.
I think bariatric surgery isn't just a surgery about weight loss, but it gives people an opportunity to live their best life. For many people, they feel like perhaps for a while they haven't had a chance to do that, and I think this is a great way for them to do it. They are one of our power couples. I don't know what to say other than I've really enjoyed being a part of their progress. From that first visit, we get to meet them and they sit there and we talk about everyday life, we talk about challenges, we talk about fears. Now they're traveling and excited and teaching others about their journey, but they're doing it in the most unabashed way. These are the things that we didn't do well, these are the things we struggled with, this is how we got through it. So not only did they embrace the challenges and the bumps around the way, but they're not afraid to share them with others and then use them a way to lift others up. It takes courage to do that. And they're already people that give so much to their community. Now they're giving so much more to a community beyond that of others that are challenged by the disease of obesity. Those are the type of people that I go to work for every day.
I would tell my past self that it's a disease. And if you treat it like a disease, you'll be successful. It's not a moral problem. You're not weak. You're not deficient. You're struggling with the disease. And don't wait.
I would tell my past self to do it earlier, to get it done, to not waste life, to not let life pass you by, to live it, not watch it.